He thought it was just a school visit. What Jimmy Butler found instead, it changed his life, and someone else's, forever. When Jimmy Butler returned to his former school, Houston North Academy in Texas, he expected to find memories of his basketball beginnings. What he didn't expect was to find Mr. Wallace, the same janitor who had believed in him when he was cut from the varsity team, still scrubbing the gym floors at 75 years old. This discovery left the Golden State Warriors legend in shock. While most people in his position would have offered a handshake, perhaps an autograph, and gone about their day, Butler's reaction upon seeing his elderly mentor still working triggered a chain of events that no one could have predicted. What began as a simple school visit would transform not only the life of Mr. Wallace and his wife Lillian, but also Butler's own life, and finally that of an entire community. The question wasn't whether Butler would help his former mentor, but how far he would be willing to go to wreath debt of gratitude forged over decades. No one, not even Mr. Wallace himself, could have predicted what Jimmy Butler would do next. Jimmy Butler's black pickup truck parked in the Charlotte Christian School parking lot as the afternoon sun ricocheted off the windows of the building where he began his basketball career more than 20 years ago. He sat in the car for a moment, hands still on the steering wheel. "Are you sure you want to do this?" asked Eric, his personal assistant, who had moved to the passenger seat. Butler nodded. "Sometimes we need to remember where we came from to understand where we are." He got out of the car, noticing how his knees, at 37 years old, were no longer the same after years of feints and three-point shots. He adjusted his Warriors cap, pulling it a bit lower over his eyes. Perhaps they wouldn't recognize him immediately. The main entrance had been modernized since his student days, but the school colors remained intact. Jimmy opened the heavy door and entered. The hallway was quiet. Classes had ended an hour earlier, but some students remained for extracurricular activities. Two boys passed by animatedly discussing NBA statistics without even giving a glance to the man who had revolutionized the game with his long DA distance shots. Jimmy smiled to himself. In his time, he hadn't been Jimmy Butler, but simply Jimmy, the skinny kid that many doubted would go far in basketball. He followed the familiar path to the gym, passing display cases that now exhibited his jersey and photos. There was an entire section dedicated to him with newspaper clippings, high school statistics, and photos of his visits over the years. It had been almost 5 years since he had returned. The smell hit him as soon as he pushed open the gym doors. That mixture of floor polish, sweat, and rubber, similar in all gymnasiums across America. Some things never change. The gym itself had new gleaming bleachers, and on one of the walls, a huge mural of Jimmy shooting one of his iconic three-point shots with the words, "Work in silence. Let your success make noise," painted in golden and blue letters. "Well, that's new," he muttered to himself. The gym wasn't empty. In the background, a junior basketball team was practicing dribbles and passes. The coach shouted instructions as they took turns in the exercise. None of them noticed the basketball star standing at the door. Jimmy walked along the edge of the court as memories flooded each step. This was the place where Coach Showalter told him he needed to work more on his physique. This was the place where he stayed after hours as a student, practicing shots until his arms ached. This was the place where he promised himself that no one would doubt his talent again. He was so absorbed in his thoughts that he almost didn't notice the elderly gentleman slowly pushing a mop to remove dust near the bleachers. There was something about the way he moved carefully, deliberately, proud of his work, that was familiar to him. Jimmy watched him for a moment. The wee old man was wearing blue work pants and a gray shirt with the school name embroidered on the pocket. His back was slightly bent, and his snow-white hair reflected the gym light. He moved slowly but steadily, making sure no corner was left dirty. "Excuse me," said Jimmy, approaching the old man. He looked up, squinting his eyes. "The junior team practice will still take a while, sir," he said in a calm voice. "I'm just visiting. I studied here," Jimmy replied. "Ah, an alumnus. A lot of people come to visit? You must have graduated a long time ago, I imagine." "Class of 2006, commented Jimmy. 2006, repeated the old man thoughtfully. "I've been here since then, for many years." Jimmy looked at him more closely. mentally removing the wrinkles and white hair, and said, "Mr. Wallace, is that you?" The janitor tilted his head, studying Jimmy's face. "Do I know you, son?" "It's me, Jimmy. Jimmy Butler." Mr. Wallace's eyes widened. He rested his mop against the wall and took a step toward him. "Little Jimmy Butler? Seriously?" Jimmy smiled. "I'm not so little anymore, Mr. Wallace." "My God," muttered Mr. Wallace. Jimmy Butler in person. He hesitated for a moment and then extended his hand. "Sorry for not recognizing you immediately. My eyes aren't what they used to be." Instead of shaking his hand, Jimmy hugged him. Mr. Wallace felt fragile in his arms. As they separated, Jimmy noticed the janitor's eyes filling with tears. "I can't believe you're still working here, Mr. Wallace. It's been almost 20 years. 2 years next month," agreed the janitor. 37 years in total. "And how old are you now, if it's not too important to ask?" "I turned 75 last month," replied Mr. Wallace with a hint of pride. 75. Jimmy couldn't hide his astonishment. "And you're still working full-time?" "I have nowhere else to go," replied Mr. Wallace with a slight shrug. "And the school needs cleaning." Jimmy looked at the man who had worked silently during all those years. He remembered how Mr. Wallace used to open the gym early so he could practice before classes. How he stayed late without complaining when Jimmy wanted just 5 more minutes of shots. How he offered words of encouragement on days when nothing seemed to go right. "Remember how you used to let me in early to practice?" asked Jimmy. Mr. Wallace's face lit up. "Of course I do. You were always the first to arrive and the last to leave. I've never seen anyone work so hard." He laughed. "Sometimes I almost had to kick you out so I could go home for dinner. Lillian would get very angry if I was late." Jimmy smiled at the memory. "But it was worth it, wasn't it?" Mr. Wallace nodded as he pointed to the mural on the wall. "Look at you now." In the distance, the junior team's coach blew his whistle, and the practice was beginning to end. The boys grabbed their water bottles and backpacks. "I should finish up here," said Mr. Wallace, picking up his mop. "I have to clean the hallways before my shift ends." "What time do you finish?" asked Jimmy. "Around 6, I think. We could meet when you finish. Maybe get something to eat." Mr. Wallace seemed surprised by the invitation. "Dinner with me?" "No, Jimmy. You must have important people to see." He placed his hand on the old man's shoulder. "Mr. Wallace, you are the most important person I want to see today." The janitor's eyes crinkled into a smile. "Well, in that case, I accept. But nothing fancy. These old bones don't fit so comfortably in luxury chairs anymore." "I know the perfect place," said Jimmy. "See you at the main entrance at 6. As Jimmy walked through the corridors of his former school, his mind was buzzing with memories. Mr. Wallace had always seemed older to his teenage eyes, but now the man was 75 years old and still pushing a mop through the halls. Something about that didn't sit right. When he reached his car, Jimmy Butler, the man recognized for his incredible accuracy and hard work, had made a decision. He didn't yet know exactly what he would do, but he was sure of one thing. Mr. Wallace's life was about to change. At the main entrance, exactly at 6:00, Jimmy was waiting. He had already made last-minute calls, canceled a dinner with sponsors, and rescheduled his flight back to San Francisco. Some things were more important than business. The school was empty with only a few cars left in the parking lot. Jimmy leaned against the wall, checking his watch. At 6:15, the main doors opened and Mr. Wallace came out, walking slowly. He had changed from his work uniform into a button-up shirt and khaki pants that seemed a bit too large for his slim figure. "Sorry to keep you waiting," said Mr. Wallace. "Principal Harris wanted to talk when he saw me leave dressed like this." "No problem," replied Jimmy. "My car is over there." Mr. Wallace's eyes widened at the sight of the elegant black pickup truck. "The fanciest car I ever rode in was my son's Buick at his wedding," he commented. Staff opened the passenger door. During the drive through Houston, Mr. Wallace pointed out the changes in the city. New buildings where fields used to be, old stores that had closed, and the cinema where he used to take his wife on dates, now converted into a department store. "I was thinking we could eat at Davidson Diner," said Jimmy. "Is it still open?" Mr. Wallace's face lit up. "Of course it is. It's been there since the 60s. You remember that place? The best strawberry milkshakes in town," commented Jimmy with a smile. "My father used to take me there after games." The Davidson Diner looked exactly as Jimmy remembered. Red vinyl seats, black and white checkered floor, and photos of local sports teams on the walls. In fact, there was a faded photograph of the Charlotte Christian team next to the cash register. A middle-aged waitress approached the table. "What can I get for you?" Chitois interrupted her sentence when she saw Jimmy. "My God, are you Jimmy Butler?" Jimmy nodded politely. "Yes, ma'am. Could you bring us 2 menus, please?" The waitress ran off, muttering to her colleagues, and soon everyone in the restaurant began looking at the table. "Sorry about that," commented Jimmy to Mr. Wallace. Mr. Wallace laughed. "Must be strange to be recognized wherever you go." "You get used to it," replied Jimmy. "But enough. I want to hear about you, Mr. Wallace. All these years at Charlotte Christian. That's dedication." The old man shrugged. "It's just a job. Someone has to keep the place clean. But most people retire long before that age," said Jimmy in a slow voice. His smile faded a little. "Well, retirement is for those who can afford it." Before Jimmy could ask more questions, the waitress returned with the menus and a basketball for Jimmy to autograph. After ordering cheeseburgers and the famous milkshakes, Jimmy resumed the conversation. "Tell me about your family, Mr. Wallace." The old man's eyes sparkled. "Lillian and I have been married for 56 years next month. I have 2 children, Eric and Denise, who live on the West Coast now, 5 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren that I haven't met yet." "That's wonderful," commented Jimmy. "I remember Mrs. Wallace sometimes bringing your lunch. She still does that once a week on Tuesdays. She always prepares a crustless turkey sandwich." Mr. Wallace laughed. "She treats me like I'm still 40 years old." While sharing the meal, Jimmy asked more questions and discovered that Mr. Wallace started working at Charlotte Christian in 1987, a few years before he became a student there. Before that, he served in Vietnam and then worked in a textile factory that closed. "I never thought I'd end up being a janitor at a school," admitted Mr. Wallace, "but it turned out to be the best job I've ever had." "Why is that?" asked Jimmy. "Because seeing the kids grow up and being a small part of their lives," said Mr. Wallace as he bit into his hamburger. "Look at you. You were a skinny student who dreamed of playing in college. I wasn't always Jimmy Butler, basketball star," remembered Jimmy. "Many thought I was too small, too weak." Mr. Wallace nodded. "I found you sitting alone in the gym once after the coach told you that you needed to get stronger." Jimmy put down his milkshake. "I remember that. Of course you were there. I was shooting in the dark. I didn't even turn on the lights. You could only hear the sound of the ball juang and hitting the basket again and again." The memory flooded Jimmy. Disappointment, anger, determination. "Do you know what you told me that day?" asked Jimmy. Mr. Wallace thought for a moment. "I can't remember exactly. You said sometimes the best players are those who have to fight for their place. And then you handed me the keys to the gym and said I could practice as much as I wanted, as long as I locked up when I was done." His eyes crinkled into a smile. "Look at that. I gave advice to the best 3-point shooter of all time. That meant a lot to me," said Jimmy. "You made me feel like I was worth something, even when I was told I was too small." "Everyone is worth something," replied Mr. Wallace. "And that's true for any child, regardless of whether they become famous or not." As they finished the meal, which Jimmy insisted on paying for, he said, "Let me drive you home." Leaving the restaurant, several people approached asking for autographs, but Jimmy was courteous and brief. After saying goodbye to the admirers and making sure Mr. Wallace was comfortable, Jimmy insisted on accompanying him all the way home. During the journey in the luxury black pickup truck, both traveled through the streets of Houston, observing the changes in the city, new buildings and old streets, evoking memories of a time when life was much simpler. In a calm voice, Jimmy confessed, "I've been thinking about everything you sacrificed during these 37 years. It pains me to know that after all you've given, you continue working, day after day. Have you thought about resting, letting others take care of you, Mr. Wallace?" Looking out the window, he replied with humility, "Every day I get up because this job gives me purpose. But sometimes I wonder if it's time to change, to enjoy a bit of the time I have left." The conversation turned into a deep and emotional recollection of old school, anecdotes, early triumphs, and those moments of struggle in the gym that had marked Jimmy's life. Upon arriving at the janitor's modest home, located in a quiet neighborhood, Jimmy helped him out. Inside, the atmosphere was welcoming. Black and white photographs, dusty trophies, and newspaper clippings decorated the walls. telling the story of a life full of effort and dedication. That night, after saying goodbye with a sincere hug, Jimmy felt inspired and decided it was time to do something that would honor Mr. Wallace's long daily journey. The following week, he organized a surprise meeting at the school in his honor. He invited alumni, teachers, and community members who, like him, knew the impact the janitor had on their lives. During the emotional ceremony, with videos and photographs that narrated years of dedication, words of gratitude and affection were shared. The highlight of the event was the announcement of a special tribute. The school, in conjunction with the staff, Butler Foundation, and some sponsors, had organized a fund so that Mr. Wallace could retire with dignity. He was offered a lifetime pension that would allow him to enjoy his golden years without the pressure of having to work every day. Additionally, Jimmy announced that he was funding annual scholarships in Mr. Wallace's name for students who demonstrated the same type of perseverance and hard work that the janitor had shown throughout his life. Through tears of emotion, the old man accepted the gift, recognizing that despite his modesty, his work had left an indelible mark. That same night, Mr. Wallace sat in his favorite armchair, looking at the photos and memories that adorned his small living room. For the first time in decades, he felt truly valued, as if every drop of sweat and all the endless days had been worth it. Meanwhile, Jimmy, standing on the threshold of the school, looked at the mural in the gym, the image of his own three-point shot, and understood that greatness was not measured only in courts and trophies, but also in the ability to inspire and transform lives. In that emotional reunion of gratitude and legacy, the end of an era was sealed, and the beginning of a new stage began, where each small gesture, each word of encouragement, had the power to change the course of a life. Jimmy Butler left that night with the certainty that by helping his mentor, he had contributed to weaving a future full of hope and recognition for an entire community. If this story touched you, share it with a friend who believes in you, and write your thoughts in the comments. Let's show our silent heroes the attention they deserve. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.